Welcome everyone to the 2026 holy moly, nutrient management planning course. Wow, we've been doing this for a while. I want to say almost 20 years now. So it has definitely changed over time, but we're glad that the folks that are attending this year are able to attend. The program, as you know, is meant to help you as a farmer develop your own nutrient management plan that meets state and federal standards. So if you come to class, do your homework, um, then by the end of class, you should have a completed nutrient management plan that meets state and federal standards. So that's great, but again, it does take time. As you know, there's 6 classes, and it takes you as the person writing the plan likely some time outside of class to put the information together. So, it is a lift, and it is a lot to cover in 6 weeks. There's a lot of information that goes into the plan. But like I said, we've been doing it for nearly 20 years. And if it didn't work, I guess we would have stopped doing it a long time ago. So it's a good process as long as, everyone, does what they're supposed to. So please show up for class. Please work with the support person that's helping you if you get behind, or just to, keep going and get your homework done every week. And like I said, it will be done. In 6 weeks. What we don't want to happen is for you to get behind because it's hard to catch up. There's a lot of information, and we want you done at the end of 6 weeks. And believe me, you want to be done too. You don't want it to drag on further. And I say that because, once class is over and once we stop meeting every week, it just gets harder to get in touch and focus on completing the information. So please do your best to attend each week, get your homework done, and reach out for help if you need it. There's plenty of help. All of us at UVM, there's a number of us here that can help out. Happy to jump on a call with you. And then again, you're working with individuals through the conservation districts, and they're there to help you too. All right, so I'm Heather Darby. I'm sorry I forgot to introduce myself. I am an agronomist and soil specialist here at the University of Vermont, and I've been teaching this class for a while, and like I said, we have a good system down to help you as a farmer write this plan for whatever reason you're writing it. You might be trying to meet some NRCS standards. You may be under state regulation, or you may just be here to learn more about soil management and growing high yielding and nutritious crops, or maybe all three. Okay. So everybody should have received a binder, and I can see for the people I can see your binders. So I know you got them. Binder. Mine is not very exciting. It's just a white binder. But inside the binder, there are a bunch of booklets, pieces of paper, information, examples. What is in the booklet, unless you're instructed to remove it and get rid of it at some point, you need to keep it in there. Okay. This book at the end of the program will actually become your official nutrient management plan. All right. So the items that are in there are part of the plan at this point. So you may have your soil tests in there. If you don't, you'll need to get them in there. You should have a bunch of maps of your farm. We'll talk about those today. You may have a manure analysis or two that needs to be in there, and some other various documents. But again, at the end of class, you will be printing and filling this in with your completed nutrient management plan. So if you are regulated by the state of Vermont, so if you're every farm is, but if you're inspected, so maybe you're a certified small farm, a medium farm, a large farm, if you are inspected by the state of Vermont for regulatory compliance, you actually need to have this NMP in hard copy on your farm. Okay. So once it's done, don't leave it with Jason if you're in Newport, and don't, leave it with the conservation district or UBM extension. You need that plan on your farm. The physical plan has to be there for an inspector to inspect your farm. So it is a requirement to have it on your farm once it's completed. Okay. And oftentimes when somebody is inspected, they'll say, well, it's on my computer, but it actually needs to be in hard copy on your farm. So just make sure you keep a copy, physical copy at the farm. All right. So let's see here. The agenda for the class is in the front page of the binder, and it goes through what we'll be covering each week over the 6-week period. The last class and even 2 classes, there is some important information shared, but most of the last few classes are spent completing the plan. And the first 4 classes are really about preparing you and giving you the information that you need to complete the plan. Okay, so the first page in the binder is the agenda and what we're going to be going over each class. There's also a second page. It's a yellow page in the binder, and it outlines what goes into the binder and where. And you don't necessarily need that at this moment in time, but as you're completing pieces of your plan and you're ready to compile it, this will be handy for you. Okay. All right. After that page, there is the textbook for the class. And it's a manual that was put together. It's called Digging In. And it is the textbook for the class, and it goes through the class pretty much verbatim how it's taught. So if you get behind, or if you don't understand something that we talked about, you can refer to the textbook. You can also read it ahead of time and prepare yourself for each class. But, that's up to you. But we will be covering basically everything that's in that book. And it's there for your reference as we go through the class. All right. So we will be using a computer program to complete. Can you guys hear us, Sarah Damsel? I see you in my. Okay. I am reading your lips. Yes, but we're trying to turn it up. Oh.
We can hear you. I'm just trying to get it so you're the only one on the screen. I'm trying to help Jay.
No, you don't need to do that, but okay. Yeah, so we will be using a computer program to complete various pieces of your plan. And the reason I said you have to have the physical binder and don't remove things from the binder and, use them to start your fire is because there are pieces not in the computer program that are a requirement of the NMP. So as an example, in the computer program, we don't have all the different maps that you need. In the computer program, we don't have the manure calculation that you need. So it's just a program that we'll use to build components of the plan, but it doesn't make up the entire plan. Okay, your entire plan should be in your notebook. The program that we're going to use is called GoCrop. Some of you may be familiar with it. Some of you may have already gone into GoCrop to set up an account. GoCrop is owned by the University of Vermont, and actually it was created hand in hand with this class. So really it was created to help farmers write and maintain their own nutrient management plan. And it, was created really by other farmers. And now over time, it's become quite a sophisticated program. Sometimes sophisticated means complicated and difficult to use. But in this case, I think once you get used to GoCrop, you'll find that it's pretty easy to use, and really can be a valuable tool for your farm, um, if you use it beyond writing your plan. Okay, so GoCrop will be the computer platform. It is in I think most of us are used to this now. It is a cloud-based software program, which just means, you don't really, you don't have a disk or a flash drive or anything like that to load it. You access it through the web, and enter your data into your account. I will say that you are the only person that owns your account, right? So we don't have access to your account. We don't have access to any of your information. It's your private account, your data. If you want to share your login information or you want to give someone access to your account, that's up to you. But otherwise, even though UVM owns the software, we don't actually have any access to your account, or any of your data. So you can't actually call us up and say, hey, can you get into my account? It's like, no. So you will have to create an account, create yet another username and password. We all love those. And then keep track of it, because again, we don't have those unless you give them to us. So we can't access your account for you without your permission and your information. Okay. You will be learning about GoCrop from Lindsay Rule on our team. She is our GoCrop expert, and she will bring you through each step of the way so that you learn how to use GoCrop. And again, hopefully it becomes a tool that you can use on your farm into the future. Okay, so with that, maybe we're going to start. There we go. There we go. All right. So each week, most weeks, we'll start off with a lecture, basically, that goes through what you'll be doing that week to develop the NMP. So really, we want to provide you with the science and the background on why you are putting this into your plan, and how that might influence or help the crops that you're growing, and also the impact that these decisions may have on the environment. So each week we'll start with a lecture. And again, those are recorded, so you can access them afterwards, or you can also read in the book for, to get the information that you may have missed or just want to learn about it again. It's I will say it's a lot. So, um, you know, we'll be throwing a lot at you, a lot that you may or may not know. It may be a review, but it's a lot of information. So we don't expect everyone to sort of grasp and get it right away, but we feel it's necessary to really not only have you enter information into a spreadsheet, but understand why you're doing it, um, and what it means to your farm and also to the environment. All right, so just quickly again, we're going to meet once a week for 6 weeks, same time, same place. We're going to complete the work for the week in Go Crop. So you'll have homework every week. Sometimes you'll have time to do it after the lecture. Usually you will. You'll have plenty of time. You'll be able to get help, maybe even finish the homework, but otherwise, it's expected that whatever you're assigned each week, you will have done by the next class. Okay, there's all kinds of help, as I said, and there's additional resources and videos online if you need to go back through any of the information that you've learned. So there is a ton of help. Really, there is no reason why you should not finish your plan after 6 weeks. Okay, it does take some effort from everybody, but we are here to help you get it done. So please make sure if you get behind or you need help that you ask for it. Okay, so this website is where all the resources are. That's where the classes will be posted. So the videos each week. This is where the link is for the class if you're accessing it from home. And then all the training materials are here as well on our website. So if you need to go there, maybe somebody can put that in the chat and we'll make sure that everybody has that. Okay, so you have a binder. There are pieces that are created in Go Crop that will go in the binder, and then there's a number of other pieces, okay, and information that make up the NMP that will need to go into your binder. So, like I said, you have pieces that will be printed out of Go Crop, but you also have to have present in your binder physical copies of your soil test from whatever lab you have gotten your soils tested at. They need to be in your binder, okay? You have to have, again, physical copies of your manure test. The manure test that came from the testing lab has to be in your binder. There is a series of maps that highlight various aspects of your farm and outline your fields that are in the nutrient management plan. Those have to be in your binder, okay? Soil fact sheets that document the types of soils and information about them. I'm saying they have to be in your binder, but now I'm not really sure of that. They've had to be in your binder for 25 years, but I'm not sure if they need to be in your binder at the moment. Maybe somebody from the district can chime in if people receive those. Jason, Sarah, anybody?
We
Yes,
have
Heather,
them.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, it took us
you.
a minute to get unmuted.
No, it's fine. I feel like we go back and forth on the soil fact sheets. So just people have them. That's great. Okay.
I don't know if they're mandatory, but they're helpful.
Yeah, they're very helpful. Okay. You'll also be given some Russell 2 numbers, which you'll learn more about. But these are soil loss numbers. So they estimate or predict the potential soil loss from each field on your farm. Okay, and that is a requirement to have those in your binder. And then there are other quote unquote important documents that are already in your binder. So as I said, don't start tearing them out for scrap paper unless you know you can. Okay, so this is everything that will go into the NMP to complete your nutrient management plan. So we've talked about the nutrient management plan a lot, and hopefully you've heard of a nutrient management plan before and you have a sense of what it is, but we'll just go through that quickly. So a nutrient management plan is meant to evaluate and combine on-farm nutrient sources. Okay, so that would be manure generated on your farm, maybe compost, cover crops, plow down legumes or sod. Okay, so sources of nutrients that are on your farm. So we want to combine those with commercial fertilizer if needed. Okay, so purchase nutrients to meet the needs of your crops and minimize any loss to the environment. Okay, so you can see right away, this has a significant farm viability component, right? So we want to make sure that we're looking at soil tests, we're understanding what the soil needs to feed your crops. We want to understand what do you have on your farm to be able to do that. We want to value that first. And then if your crops and soil need more, how do we balance that with purchased fertilizers? And again, these are decisions you'll be making to maximize your crops. Okay, that could be yield, could be quality, could be both. And at the same time, minimize any nutrient losses to the environment, right? So we want to promote your crops, but we don't want to lose nutrients. And both that's an economic value to you, but that is also an impact on the environment. So how do we manage all these things? And that's what we do when we build a nutrient management plan. It's complicated. And it's not just about, looking at the soil test. There's a lot of pieces in play here that we're going to evaluate. And, from looking at organic matter levels in your soils, taking credit, right? Nutrient credit for the manure you have on your farm. So better understanding what that manure offers to your crops, how we manage it so that we can maximize the nutrients that your crops will get. We want to be balancing nutrients so that we're not over applying, but we're also not under applying. We want to build soil health so that we're reducing the chance of runoff and losses. And we want to integrate other practices, not just applying fertilizers, but how do we integrate cover crops into the system as an example. So there's a lot to this, and that's why I said it gets to be a lot of information. It's probably already a lot of information. We're going to do our best to explain it to you and teach in a manner that you can understand and hopefully brings value to your farm. So again, hopefully you can already see why, having an NMP and going through this process is important and also valuable. You can really realize economic returns. You can help to address environmental concerns, and it can also help with public relations. Having an NMP is one thing. Understanding the NMP is a whole nother level, and being able to talk about it and use it as a public relation tool is becoming more and more important today. So economics, I already talked about this a little bit, but your nutrients on the farm, the manure that you have, legumes, sods, cover crops, they can all bring value, nutrient value to your farm. And sometimes we look at manure in particular just as like something we have to get rid of, something we need to move around. But really understanding that value is important and maximizing the value. How do we get the most out of it so that you're not, wasting money essentially? So, how do we put together a plan that really optimizes the manure in particular, but other crop resources and residues you have on your farm? They are quite valuable. Okay. Um, so, just some simple math here. 1,000 gallons of manure. That's not 1,000 gallons in that little cow patty, but manure. Gives you 5 pounds of nitrogen, 4 pounds of phosphorus, 15 pounds of potassium, just roughly. And when you remove a ton of dry matter, okay, of forage from a field, which, essentially is one cutting. So if you're haying or grazing, that first cut of hay, you're removing 50 pounds of nitrogen, 17 pounds of phosphorus, and 50 pounds of potassium. Okay. So replacing that amount is what we're really trying to do through the manure resources we have. Okay. So you can see, well, if I put on 5,000 gallons, I'm going to supply enough nitrogen, enough phosphorus, and enough potassium for that forage I just removed. Okay. So again, it's about checks and balances, and maximizing the value of that manure that you have on your farm. We know that if we fertilize fields with manure, it improves yields. Okay. When you don't fertilize fields, I think most people know this, yields go down. If you don't fertilize regularly, yields might be okay in one year, but in other years, not so great. So we know that fertilizing with manure improves yields. Okay. But when you also meet the needs of the crop, you're not just adding manure, okay, but you're meeting all the needs of the crop and possibly purchasing extra fertilizer if needed, you can further maximize yields. Okay. You can increase yields oftentimes by a ton and a half. That's what's shown in this example. Okay. Where we're fertilizing with manure and then we're adding additional fertilizer as needed, right? Based on what you're going to learn here. And you're able to boost yields even further. Okay. Now, yields aren't the only thing we're worried about, but high quality yields helps to fill the bunk, or more bales, but the cows eat it better when it's better quality, obviously, and they get more out of it. So we're looking for high yield with high quality. And part of getting that combination is through proper fertility management. Okay. And you can really improve the nutrition of your feed by adding what the crop and soil says it needs. And again, this is an example. This is from a local trial that we did here in Vermont. And you can see again, we had manure only, and then we had manure and purchase fertilizer based on the needs of the soil and the crop. And you can see the increase in the nutrients of the forage. And it was quite substantial. So again, really what we're trying to do here is optimize yield and quality by first using what you have and then adding where needed. And it can make a huge difference in yield and quality, which has an impact on your bottom line. Okay. People always say, well, fertilizer costs money. Well, you're right, it does. But buying feed also costs money, right? Harvesting half the yield off of a field costs the same as harvesting double the yield. Right? So, you can only do what you can do based on the economics of your farm, but making sure that you realize putting in what the crop needs is going to also have a payout to you. So here's again, just another table or graph showing soils that were amended. So they were fertilized based on the recommendation and the feed quality versus those forages that were not. Okay. So again, this is what we're trying to achieve. We're not trying to break the bank. And this is pounds of milk per ton of dry matter. Again, goes up substantially because of quality improvements when you're taking care of the needs of the crop. So economics are big reason to really dig into this. Here's another example where this is research out of Vermont again, where we were looking at grass alone, meaning grass with no fertility in that year, grass mixed with legumes, okay, and then grass just fertilized with nitrogen fertilizer. And you can see when we're adding nitrogen to the system, in this case, we're doubling yields. And that nitrogen can be added by adding a legume. In this case, it was red clover, or by adding fertilizer. Okay, so there are different ways to achieve yield improvements that don't always mean applying or purchasing fertilizer. So we can also achieve better yields and quality by including legumes in our forage mixes. Okay, and again, just showing you grass only yields versus grass with clover. So again, we're going to encourage people to be looking at different options to manage productivity on their farm, but it does make a difference. So you can see here, this is a 1 ton yield difference between, just having grass and incorporating clover into the system. All right. So economic returns, hopefully you'll realize that. And I guess economic returns, are really going to be based on having high yields and quality, however that looks for you on your farm, by managing inputs and managing those effectively to achieve those goals. You may actually spend more money, but the goal is to get a return on what you've spent, right? So you're gaining in that way. For some people, they save money, right? They realize that they can get the same yields and quality, but spend less on fertilizer or allocate manure to a different field that might need it more. So environmental concerns, we're looking at nutrient losses to surface water. That is the primary one in Vermont, okay, and surface water being lakes, rivers, streams. That's, I would say, the most significant concern that's dealt with here and a significant concern in Vermont. We're also going to manage nutrient losses to the air, okay? Primarily, these losses are through volatilization of nutrients. So this is losses of nitrogen into the air. And we want to reduce those because, any losses are losses to you, not just the environment. If you're losing nutrients, that's money, right? So minimizing those losses into the air or into water, whether it's surface or groundwater, is an economic savings to you, but also a savings to the environment. Okay, so that's what we're going to be trying to work on by developing a plan. This has been a hot topic in the news lately, and that's managing nutrients coming out of tile outlets. And so we do account for that in the nutrient management planning process through the phosphorus index. But there are also required ag practices around managing tile that are requirements in the state. So if you have tile and subsurface drainage, we will be accounting and trying to reduce losses from those outlets on your farm. Okay, so let's talk about public relations. Like I said, NMPs, just knowing what you're doing in an NMP, knowing why it matters to the environment, knowing what you've done and managed on your farm to reduce those losses, can go a long way with public relations. NMPs, they are known by groups, sometimes individuals. They're known as a tool to help minimize losses. So the more you know about that and what you're doing on your farm, when you get questioned, asked, you're able to talk about, what you're doing to the public to manage losses. And, there's a lot of public and our farms are in the public eye. And so the more knowledge you have, the better. And the more that you can explain and share with people what you're doing to protect the environment. Okay, regulation. So that's why I feel like most people come through this class is because they've got to meet state or federal regulation, or they want to be involved in a state or federal program. And I think that's fine. I get it. But I hope that you realize, some of the other benefits as you go through class, beyond the fact that you're going to meet regulation. So Vermont has many regulations, as you know, and the primary set of regulations that regulate all farms, so all farms are under these regulations in Vermont, are the required agricultural practices. And I'm assuming they have been in play for quite some time now. So I'm assuming that most people know what I'm talking about, what the RAPs are, and how they apply to you. But every farm, regardless of your size, is required to follow the RAPs. There are some great resources online, and I know Sarah Damzell has some resources and had a great quiz at one time. Sarah, I don't know if you're still doing that, but lots of great resources to make sure you know what the RAPs are. We will be following all the RAPs that apply to nutrient management. Okay, there's some outside of nutrient management that you should know about as well. So I would recommend that if you're not familiar with all of the RAPs, that you pick up one of the resources, which I'll mention in a minute, and just make sure you know. But if you are a certified small farm operation, you're a medium farm, or if you're a CAFO or a large farm, you are required to follow the nutrient management standard 590. Okay, so on top of following the RAPs, you are also required to develop a nutrient management plan that meets the 590 standard and then implement it, okay, and keep records and update it. So not every farm has to meet this rigid standard, but those farms listed, medium, large, and certified small farms are required by state law to meet that standard, okay? And that is the standard that we follow in the nutrient management class, okay? The class that you're in right now, we're following the 590 standard. And like I said, once you complete your plan, it will meet this standard. Okay, so it meets the regulatory requirements of the state of Vermont, and it also meets federal requirements for nutrient management planning. Okay. All right, so this is a great resource. If you need this resource, we have copies. We used to include it in the binder, but at this point, we kind of figured most people either have this or know about the RAPs. I'm sure if you're in one of the conservation district offices, they have copies of this or can show you where to access it online. But this is a great publication on the RAPs. I love it. It's colorful, it's easy to follow, it has great diagrams. So if you don't know much about the RAPs, I would suggest getting that document. All right, so let's talk about the 590 standard. Since this is the standard that you will be following, I want to take a little time to go through it and what it entails. And then, of course, over the next remaining 5 weeks, we're going to be putting all these pieces together that I'm going to talk about. But before I do that and move on to the standard, does anyone have any questions? I'm not paying attention really to the chat, but. It's easy in a virtual setting to just go on and on and on and on. Think people are listening. So I will stop. And if anybody has a question, you can ask whoever's in your room or just unmute. You can ask now or put it in the chat as well. Okay, great. Moving on. The nutrient management standard, okay, is what we're going to follow. It is in your binder, the standard itself, and I say it's a good read. And if you're bored at night or in the morning or at breakfast or whenever, I actually would recommend that you read it. It helps you understand, the parts and pieces of a nutrient management plan, gives some additional detail around some of the requirements and why you're doing it and the tools that we use. You don't have to read it, but I will say there is a copy in your binder and it needs to be in your binder, okay? There's also a checklist that we'll be using to check off that you've met all the kind of components of the NMP when we're done. And I will sign that paper saying that you meet the standard. So, like I said, y'all read it, but trust that we are following the standard. Okay. Let's talk about pieces of the standard that you will need to follow. They should, they will go into the plan. One of those is around setbacks and buffers and restrictions on manure application. Okay. And these buffers are meant for surface water protection, but there's also buffers around wells. specifically that are meant to protect groundwater. Okay, so we have different kinds of buffers. Some buffers are there to prevent potential runoff of nutrients and soil into surface water. So again, that could be a ditch, could be a stream, river, the lake. Okay, and then also around wells, and around the wells is to protect groundwater. I think most people are familiar with these buffers, but they're listed here. And again, we will be following those, and they will go into your plan. Now, we build them into your plan, and we assume that you're following that, right? You're planning to follow that. But if you do not have the required buffer yet in a field, it is the law. So you should be implementing those buffers. I mean, they should already be there, but you should be implementing them as part of implementing the plan. Okay. So other parts of the nutrient management checklist, you have to have soil tests. Okay. If this is the first plan, nutrient management plan that you have ever written, okay, you're not updating a plan, then your soil test must be less than 2 years old. Okay. So you need new soil tests if you're developing a plan for the first time. After that, okay, you need to have new soil tests every 3 years. Right? So if this is the first time you're creating a plan, I think for most people it is, your soil tests should be new. They should be from this year, but it's acceptable if they're a couple years old. It's not acceptable if they were 3 years old or older, okay? But after that, the requirement is that you need to have updated soil tests every 3 years. Okay. You have to have yearly, okay, so every year you need to have a manure test from each source on your farm. So if you have a stack of manure, you have a bedded pack, you have a manure pit, or you just have a manure pile somewhere, or you have compost that you're generating on your farm, you need to have a test for those nutrient sources each year. Okay, that is a requirement. And as far as soil tests go, it is very specific and required that you use a soil test that has been tested with the modified Morgan's extractant. Okay. So if you are using the UVM lab, this is what we do in Vermont, in Maine, in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island. We use modified Morgan's extractant to determine nutrient levels in your soil. This is a requirement of the state of Vermont to use this extractant. Okay. If you are using Dairy One Lab, Agri One Lab out of New York, you need to make sure that they know, you're from Vermont. By default, they will use modified Morgan's. If they don't know your soil tests are on a Vermont farm, they will use Morgan's. And modified Morgan's is not the same as Morgan's. Okay, so those tests would not be acceptable. If you're using a lab outside of the Northeast, in the Midwest, and you get Bray 3, Olson 1, or some other extractant besides modified Morgan's, you cannot use those results in your plan. You cannot write a nutrient management plan with soil tests that have not been extracted with modified Morgan's. This still happens, which is why I'm making a big deal out of it. Okay, so make sure your tests have been extracted and the results you have are from modified Morgan's analysis. Okay. Besides your soil tests, required buffers, you will be also needing to put in information about the crop into your NMP and the field. So crop and field information. You'll need to put in the soil type for each field. You'll need to put in a planned rotation for each field, a rotation that meets T. We'll talk about that in a minute. And any required cover cropping for that field, or just cover cropping in general if you're doing that, and yield goals. Okay, so what yields are you pulling off of those fields? You will need to have handy and put into the plan information about nutrient sources on your farm. So we need to put in the plan how much manure and other waste, I guess, is produced on your farm. Okay, so this is a calculation and a quantity that you'll likely get from the person you've been working with to be ready for this class. So how much manure are you producing on your farm? And usually that calculation would include bedding, any milk center, water, waste, barnyard runoff, etc. Okay, so we need an estimation of that. And we need an estimation for each source. So if you have a stack versus something in a manure pit or a compost pile, we need to know what it is. And then we also need to know the nutrient level of that so that we can write the plan. We will also be doing a number of risk assessments by looking at phosphorus levels on your soils in each field and calculating a phosphorus index. And also looking at a nitrogen leaching index. And essentially, these tools help us understand the risk that a field and management poses to nutrient loss. Okay, so how likely, how high is the risk that a field and how it's managed will lead to losses of phosphorus and nitrogen? Right? So this is something we'll be doing shortly in class. We'll be calculating that. And then after we do all those things, we will start making field by field recommendations. So using the manure, the quantity and quality, combining that with fertilizers, timing of application and rates to meet the needs of your crops while reducing the impact on the environment. Okay, so it took me 5-10 minutes to go through, but it's going to take you 6 weeks to get it all together. But those, essentially are the pieces of the NMP. All right. So it's 11:30. What we're going to do now is talk about the very first requirements of the NMP, and this will be your homework for the week. Okay, so I'm going to go through this, talk about the maps that are required. Okay? And again, you should have those. They will be given to you. They should have been generated by a land treatment planner, someone that you've been working with the conservation districts, but those maps will be provided to you. Okay. The predicted soil loss numbers that I was talking about, these will be provided to you and you will need to check those. So that will be part of your first homework. And then finally, you will fill out the very first part of your nutrient management plan in GoCrop, which is describing your farm and various assets on the farm. Okay, so we'll take till lunchtime probably to go through this. And then after that, you will have Lindsay describing how to enter information into GoCrop. And then you will have the rest of the time to complete your homework, which again, you should be able to finish in class. Okay, so let's talk about the maps that are required in the plan. Okay. Now again, depending on the planner, your map may look different than this, but it's really the map type that needs to be in the plan, and it needs to represent the fields on your farm that are being included in the nutrient management plan. Right, so the first map is a watershed and proximity map. Now again, these might be two separate maps. They might be combined. In this case, it's combined. And you can see those watershed numbers, those big numbers, 12-digit numbers, 0201, 008, 1607. That is showing the watershed, or telling you the watershed that your farm is located in. Okay, so in this case, you can see the red fields of the farm. Those are outlined. You can see the proximity of the farm to its surroundings, and you can see the watershed that it's located in and the watershed code. Okay, you will need the watershed code in your NMP, so you will be entering that. You will also need, if the watershed you're in is impaired, and why it's impaired, okay? And that information will be made available to you either in a map or by the person you've been working with to develop the maps. Okay, the next map you'll need is a map that outlines the fields. This can be called a lot of different things. It can be called a conservation plan map, Food Security Act map, but really this map outlines the fields on your farm, the FSA track and field number, which you'll need for the plan, and it should show the acres and whether it's highly erodible or not. Okay, many of you are familiar with this map. This is a map you'll get from FSA. Often people call this, oh, that's my FSA map. But again, the map outlines your fields. It tells you the FSA track and field number. Again, you'll need that for the plan, and the acreage. Okay, all of this information will go into the plan. Soil map is another required map. And again, you can see your fields here, right? Still has the acres, has the track and field number, but underneath that, it shows the soil types in those fields, okay? And this particular map has the soil series. So you can see under field 7, it's 50 acres. That's a big field in Vermont. You can see the predominant soil type somewhere there is, okay, I can't even see it. I don't know what it is. What is that? Brown. Does anybody see the label? Hilarious. Anyway, you can see the soil series represented in that field. So here's this little orange one, which clearly is a minor part of the field, but it's SD capital A, okay? That's a soil series. It will match up to one of the fact sheets and give you a bunch of pertinent information that you need for the NMP, all right? So you need this soil map. You need to know the predominant soil type in a field and or the most limiting soil type, and you'll be using that to build the plan. But you need a soil map. Okay. Um, if you're in a frequently flooded area, you will have a frequently, this is a tongue twister, a frequently flooded soil map. You won't, not everyone will have this. Again, this is specific to certain farms, but it is a requirement if you fall under frequently flooded. All right, a resource concern map. Again, this may be called various things, but the goal of this map is to show wells on a farm. It will also show required buffers, right? And the size of those buffers. So you can see here, we have this green kind of outlined area. Those are the required 25-foot buffers on this farm. You can see this red circle with blue. That is the nutrient spreading setback around a well. So it shows a well and the fact that you need to have a setback when you're spreading, okay? These maps may also show other environmental sensitive areas. It could show wetlands, but it definitely, you need to have a map that shows these potential resource concerns. Buffer and setback maps, again, not every farm will have these, but usually this would show a well, potentially in this case, it's a public well, and it shows the 200-foot required nutrient application setback and what fields that might affect. Okay, so again, not everyone will have this map, but again, you need to have a map that shows wells, required setbacks, required buffers, and other resource concerns. Farm practice map, again, this isn't necessarily required, but this often ends up in a map or in a binder showing practices that are being implemented on the farm. So these might include, you can see in this case, this field has nutrient management, cover cropping, and no-till. Okay, so these practice maps generally are associated with a NRCS contract. Manure stacking map. So if you are field stacking manure, you will have a map that shows the location of those stacks. Obviously, wherever those stacks are, they will be needing to meet the regulatory standards of the state of Vermont and also meeting NRCS standards. All right, so your homework is to make sure the maps that you have represent the fields that you are including in the binder or in the NMP. Okay, so if you're missing a field, missing a tract of land, you need to reach out to the person that created those maps and make sure you get the maps that you need. Also check your maps for accuracy. And what I mean by that is sometimes a well, as an example, might show up on a map, but there is no well. A well doesn't exist there. And that needs to be corrected. Sometimes it might show buffers, required buffers around around water, and that water doesn't actually exist. There is no water source there. So again, you just want to make sure you're checking the maps. They're accurate in that sense. And the fields that you're including in the NMP show up on a map. Okay, so that's your homework, part of your homework for this week. All right, your second bit of homework that I am going to talk about is having your soil loss equation or your soil loss numbers for each field on your farm. Okay. What we need to know, the information we need to know is what is the potential soil loss from the fields on your farm based on the soil type, the weather in that field, right? The slope of the field and the management. So we are trying, obviously, to minimize soil loss. We do not want to lose soil from an environmental perspective, right? We don't want soil going into surface water. Soil sediment causes issues in surface water, carries nutrients, and it builds up rivers and streams in the minimum. And for you, if you're losing soil out of your field, it's usually the topsoil, and it's the best soil that you have, that you've bought and paid for, or you're paying for. So you don't want to lose soil either. So the goal here is to evaluate the potential for loss and then minimize that loss by changing management. Clearly, we cannot change the soil type. We cannot change the slope. We cannot change the weather. But what we can manage is how frequently we till, what kind of crops we're growing, the type of rotation that we're using, okay? So the goal here is to minimize soil loss to a standard, and I will show you what that standard is. All right. So we predict soil loss through a model. I know people love this. Again, we're predicting. It's the best model that we have, and it's called the revised, so it's been improved, universal soil loss equation version 2. And again, it's a tool, it's a model, it's not perfect, but it is the standard that's used to predict soil loss on your farm and determine if we have to reduce that or not. All right, so primarily with this tool, we're looking at sheet erosion and rill erosion. Okay, so these should look, well, hopefully they don't look familiar to you, but these are common sources of soil loss on our fields in Vermont. But we do not look at gully erosion, okay? This equation does not account for this. And again, this isn't Vermont, clearly, but we do have these issues in Vermont. And if you have this type of erosion, and you may be laughing, thinking this is extreme, but I have seen this in Vermont fields. So, if you have this severity of erosion, you need to reach out so we can get this fixed. And this, my friends, can lead to this. So we're trying to minimize soil loss. These should, I shouldn't say they should seem more familiar, but this is, often the type of erosion we see around, Vermont due to, extreme weather events, sometimes not so extreme, but also management, right? We have bare ground here, very exposed, you get a rain event and soil moves. So we're trying to, again, minimize that. So in this model, like I said, we look at climate, we look at soil type, we look at the topography, and then we look at management. And again, what we can change to reduce erosion is management. And sometimes we are, meaning you are, will be required to change management to meet the regulatory requirements for soil loss, okay? Not only should you want to reduce soil loss, but there are requirements that require us to reduce soil loss. Okay. And as farmers, each field on your farm has to meet T. That is the regulatory requirement. And T is the tolerable soil loss for that soil in that field, really for the soil series. Okay. So we've talked about the soil fact sheets, that they exist. They are in your binders. That has been confirmed. And we talked about the soil maps, right? And you should be able to tell on your soil map in a field what soil types you have. And when you look at that, you can match that up to a soil fact sheet. And the soil fact sheet gives you a whole bunch of information about that soil series. Okay. And here's an example. RAB, so that's that 3-letter code that we saw in the soil map, is a Rainham silt loam. And this soil type is found in Franklin County. So you can see that on the soil fact sheet. And it is Rainham silt loam, which is the RA part of this 3-digit code or 3-letter code, B. And B relates to the slope. So B is a 3 to 8% slope. So it's a Rainham silt loam with a 3 to 8% slope. There's a little bit of narrative here, and it talks about the soil, talks about soil properties. Okay, so it says it's a deep soil, very deep, but it's poorly drained and poorly drained to somewhat poorly drained. And then it talks about permeability of the soil and the water table depth. And then it says it's well suited to cultivated crops and very well suited to hay and pasture. Okay, so it gives us some information about soil performance. And then there's additional information down below about the soil's physical and chemical properties. So it talks about the typical texture at various depths, the percentage of clay, the kind of range of pHs, the permeability, average organic matter for that soil type. And then it gives you these erosion factors, okay? And then you can see there is a factor called T. And below it, in this example, it has a T of 5. So again, this is the tolerable soil loss for this soil series. So for a Rainham silt loam with a 3 to 8% slope, the tolerable soil loss is 5 tons of soil per acre per year. That's a lot, right? So the regulatory requirements state that if you have a field with a Rainham silt loam, 3 to 8% slope, you can lose up to 5 tons of soil per acre per year and meet the regulatory requirements. Okay. Obviously, you want to lose less than that, but you definitely can't lose more. Okay. That's that you won't meet the regulations. Okay. Now, what changes whether you meet or you don't meet really is at this point more based on how you manage those soils. Okay. Now, every soil series is a little bit different. So you have some that are 5 tons of soil loss, some that are 3, some that are 2, some that are 1. And really this goes back to how quickly a soil can regenerate itself. And so if you have a shallow soil, really bony, it cannot regenerate itself fast enough if you lose more than 2 tons of soil per acre per year. So like I said, every situation's a little bit different. And in this case, this is a soil that's very deep and can regenerate quickly or more quickly than others. So you're allowed to lose more, okay? Here's an example of a Munson silt loam, also with 3 to 8% slopes, okay, but a different soil type. And if you look down to the T tolerable soil loss here, with this soil, you're only allowed to lose 2 tons of soil per year. That is the regulatory requirement. So what's the difference? The difference is likely the drainage class, the hydrologic group, etc. But it's different. So if you're farming this soil, you can only lose 2 tons, okay? So let's go here. So again, what Russell 2 does is it models the potential for soil loss in tons of soil per acre per year for each field on your farm. And that number that you receive from the model needs to meet T, okay? So you have a tolerable soil loss for a field on your farm, and then you have the predicted soil loss. So what are we predicting you're going to lose? And whatever is being predicted needs to be less than T, okay? Now, this model is run for you for the fields on your farm, okay? And you will receive a printout that might look like this, might look different, who knows? But it will tell you the track and field number on the printout. And so in this case, it's up in the left-hand corner. Sometimes there'll be more than one field here, okay? So Russell 2 might be run on a wide number of fields at one time, especially if they are in sod, let's say, okay? And then you can see below here, here is the soil series, the soil type, and here is the T value for that soil in your field, okay? So here's a Buckland loam, and the T for that soil is 3, okay? So for the fields here, whatever they are, you have to meet T, which means whatever you're doing in that field has to have less than 3 tons of soil loss per acre per year, okay? So now down below here are the modeled results, okay? So these are coming out of the modeling program Russell 2. And what you will see here are different scenarios, okay? So if you are growing row crops or you're growing annual crops and you're rotating from annual to perennials, you will see likely some different options here. You may see what you're currently doing, as you can see in this example, current rotation, 5 years corn, 5 years hay, okay? And then below that is an alternative, 3 years corn, 6 years hay. Then you see base management is next, and it describes in more detail what is happening in those 5 years corn, 5 years hay, all right? And below the same, what is happening in those 3 years corn, 6 years hay. If you go over a couple of columns, you see this conservation plan soil loss. So this is the predicted soil loss based on the model from what you're doing in this field. In the current rotation, it has been predicted that there'll be 4.3 tons of soil loss per acre per year. That does not meet T of 3, right? So something else has to be done. You cannot use this current rotation. You have to figure out an alternative where you will be able to meet T. Now, generally, to be honest, most people meet T. It's not a big deal, but in some cases, there will be changes that need to be made. Okay. And your planner who's helping you will create those alternatives for you and with you to help you meet T. So in this case, 3 years corn, 6 years hay does meet T. We have a soil loss of 2.1. So as a farmer, if this works for you, that would become your new rotation for that field that would need to be implemented to meet T and regulatory requirements. Okay. So every field on your farm has to meet T across the rotation. Okay. This is the average value of soil loss per acre per year across the rotation. Okay, that's where you have to meet T. Now, what I want you to do is look over to the left here. I know you're tired. You've learned too much already. But this outlines soil loss each year of the rotation. Okay. And when you average these numbers together, you get 2.1. But what I want you to see is that in year 1, you have 1.9 tons of soil loss. In year 2, you have 2.9 tons of soil loss. In year 3, it goes up to 3.3. You're over T. In year 4, it's 3.5. You're over T. In year 5, it's 3.5. You're over T. Right? So you can see you are below T, you're over T, and then you're below T again. And when you average those numbers together across the rotation, you meet T. Okay? And that is the regulatory requirement, that your rotation meets T. So the average soil loss meets T. And in this case, the alternative does. You will use the individual year soil loss numbers in your plan. Okay. You will need to enter those, and we will talk about where they get used later on. But as far as today, or for your homework, you need to make sure that your fields meet T. And so you should be looking at this printout today with your planner, whoever you're working with, and make sure you're meeting T. And make sure if you were not, the alternative that's been provided works for you, right? You want to have something that you're going to actually do. Okay. Let's see here. I will say that mostly if you have grass ground, if you have hay ground, and you're not plowing those fields up or tilling those fields on a rotation, most of those fields meet T. That's not an issue. Here's an example of that. Usually soil loss on grass fields that are permanent grass or pasture have less than 1 ton of soil loss per year. Okay, so, if you're an all grass farm, generally you're meeting T. But again, just check and make sure that it's accurate what's listed here for you. All right. I think that is what I have for your homework. And again, you're going to want to check your maps. Make sure the fields that are going into your plan are represented on maps. Make sure the maps are accurate, especially in regard to buffers, water, wells. And then you'll want to go through your soil loss calculations. Make sure you have them. Make sure you have them for the fields that are going into your plan, and make sure they meet T. Okay. So that's pretty straightforward. At this point, though, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay to go through GoCrop.
I'm Lindsay. I work for UVM Extension, and I am happy to help troubleshoot things that go on with GoCrop when you're using it, or if you just have any general user questions, and also any NMP questions. We've got a great team here to help with that. One thing that I will mention, and I'm sorry if Heather already said this, but this year we have this 50 new user manual. So hopefully this will help be a good resource for you and help answer some questions. That said, if you do see something in here, you're like, I don't quite understand that, or this doesn't make sense, please let us know. This is our, we've had many eyes on this, but like all things GoCrop, we are constantly trying to improve. And one of the best ways we can improve is with your feedback. So if you don't have this PDF of this manual, I think you can reach out to Susan. She'll be able to connect you with that. All right. So when you are first signing up for GoCrop, you're going to need to make an account. So the best place to start with that is at in your browser. And just to back up a moment too, GoCrop works best in Chrome. You can kind of use it in Firefox, and I would strongly discourage using it in Edge. It's just not supported there. And Firefox, there's still a few little hiccups with the way that it's supported. So if possible, please use GoCrop in Chrome. So when you first get into your browser, hopefully Chrome, you're going to go to your website address section and type in the URL, the website for it. And that is going to be www.gocrop, that's GOCROP.com. And you'll notice that once you enter that in, it's the URL, the web address does change to new.gocrop.com. That's fine. That's great. You're in the right spot. This is what we want your screen to look like. So if you have not created an account, you're going to click sign up. If you do have an account, you'll click log in. But we haven't, so I'm going to click sign up. Here is a one-step screen where you will enter your email address and a password to create your account. Just a few caveats on this is that this email address really should be the email address of the farmer. So if you are a technical assistance provider, if you're someone who works with NRCS, NRCD, this should not be your email. The email sign up that goes here should be for the farmer, the person who's going to be making the plan or managing the plan. If you're working with someone who doesn't have an email, please create an email address for them. You can do this easily with Gmail, Yahoo, AOL. I don't know what all is out there. I guess there's Outlook too. So just whatever makes sense. But again, this email address entered here should be that of the farmer, the person who's going to be in the plan, using the plan, implementing the plan. And then you'll type in a password, right? It makes this password easy to remember, easy to type, especially for some folks who may not be in front of a keyboard all day. Adding an extra capital or a character or a number can just be another second or two of frustration. So please make the password easy to remember, easy to type. If you are a farmer and you feel comfortable, please write this down and share it with your technical assistance provider. Technical assistance provider is somebody that might be with NRCD, NRCS, or Extension that is helping you create your plan. So once you enter your email and your password, you'll retype your password and click create your account. I can't walk you through all the screen steps in this because I have maxed out on my ability to create new Gmail accounts, which I would need to do to create a whole new account for GoCrop. So I'm just going to walk you through what happens next. So after you type this in, click create account, go to that email address. I guess I should also say that whatever email address you enter here, make sure the person you're working with has access to it and it is active. Once you type in this email address, your password, and your type your password, click create your account, there will be an email sent to your the email that you just entered. So once you have that email, it will hopefully show up in your inbox. It might be in an all mail box, but you'll see once you open up that email, it'll see, I think it says like, click this link to confirm, and you'll click that to confirm, which is basically what that's doing is it's GoCrop saying, hey, I need to make sure you have an email address that we can contact you with if we need to. This is, you don't get spam through this. It's just GoCrop related account stuff. And then when you confirm it, it tells GoCrop that, yes, this is an active email account that we can contact you with. I think I see some things in the chat, so I'm going to pause here. Thank you, Susan, for posting the user manual. Yes, and I'm going to reiterate what Susan put in the chat. If you do feel comfortable sharing your password with the technical assistant provider that's sitting next to you, please also, if you do feel comfortable, share that with Susan and Extension as well. I can tell you from experience, like over the years, we do get a number of calls saying, I can't get into my email account. I don't remember my email login, or I don't remember my password. And so it's really easy if we have that for you just to share that. But there are other ways, like you can see right here on the screen that I have, forgot your password or forgot your email. There are ways that GoCrop can help you get that information if you need it. I'm going to pause here and just see, has everybody created an account? Confirmation email may have gone to spam. It could be hiding somewhere. I think it seems like most folks are waiting for the next step. So I'm going to move forward. And if we need help troubleshooting, creating an account if you haven't gotten the confirmation email, maybe we can connect in a breakout room or separately so we can share screens. All right. So once you've created your account and you've gotten your confirmation email, you click confirm email or login, whatever it says there. It may either bring you directly in or it will bring you to the login page. Either way, if you're ever coming back to GoCrop after you create your account, come to this page, you'll click login. And then you'll enter your email and your password. If this is your personal computer, you can always choose to say, hey, remember me later, and it will save it for you. So whenever you come back in, it'll be saved and just have one less step to do. But if it's not your personal computer, if you're working on a computer from NRCB or Extension, it might be best practice to say, like, don't remember my username and password. But for me, my personal computer, my example here, I'm going to click log in. Now, when you first come in to your account, you won't see anything here. I've created a couple of dummy accounts to get myself acclimated here. And like I said, I can't make new accounts. Gmail has told me that I've done enough. So this will be blank, and you'll have a new form button over here. But what you will see here is on the left-hand side, you'll see account and synced just now. This is a green sidebar menu, green menu on the left. And this synced is really nice if you're working on multiple devices. So you might be on a laptop and your technical assistance provider might be on a laptop, and you might both be working. And this is how you can kind of know if you're able to see each other's data. So the last time that GoCrop has synced with the cloud and all the data has come together. And then we have this button called account. I'm going to go into this for a moment because there's one piece that I would like you to fill out that'll take about less than 3 minutes, and it will help us as a program know who's using GoCrop without knowing your exact information. So a few little demographic questions. So if you click account, this is also the section where you can see your current password. You can change your password. You can change your email that's associated with GoCrop. If at any time your email address that you have been using is not one that you want to use anymore, you want to connect GoCrop to a different, more active email account, that's the section where you can do that. This is also where you log out. So when you're done for the day, you come to account, log out, and GoCrop will say goodbye to you. And then the other tabs here in your account, and again, this is like your GoCrop account. You'll click profile, and these are the questions I'd like you to answer. I'm just taking a few minutes here. There's just some profile information. So which best describes you: farmer, crop consultant, university, government agency, other, or not applicable. None of these do. So for you who are creating this plan, most likely you are a farmer. You'll choose your farm type. We have these drop downs. Please choose the one that most describes your operation, right? You might be incredibly diverse, which is excellent, but again, just choose the one that makes the most sense to you. And then the number of acres managed. Once you put that in there, you'll click submit. Just a couple more tabs here, just why we're here, an account to familiarize yourself with GoCrop. This might be your first time you're in it. So again, we're in our GoCrop account tab, and we also click farms. For you, you probably don't see anything here right now because you haven't entered a farm yet, but I have a couple, so we'll see those there. That's also where you can see your status. Most likely you will be an owner, and so your status is irrevocable. And we also have a little bit here on your data. And if you are curious about GoCrop's privacy policy, we've got a link to that here. And then we also have a couple of contact pieces of information here, our email address and our phone number. So if you ever have a question about GoCrop, you can feel free to email either this email address or Susan's or mine. Happy to get emails at any time. And then also the phone number, which is our office phone number, and we can connect you with somebody who can help you. Okay, so we've gone over our menu over here, we've gone over account, we've gone over sync. Now we're going to go to all farms. So right, you don't have a farm yet here, so we're going to create a new farm. And to do that, we're going to press this plus button in the upper right. One of the we tried to, when designing GoCrop, keep things as consistent as possible. So anytime you need to add something, usually, most often, is in the upper right with this little plus button. So we're going to add a new farm. You're going to add a new farm. And you're going to fill out the form. So you're going to answer here, what is your farm name? So for you, write whatever your farm name is. I'm going to call this one 2026 class on my end. And then you'll see this drop down for default. What you need to pick here, so you're going to ignore New York, right? Because we're not there, we're in Vermont. And we're not basic. We're not basic, so don't choose basic. We're Vermont. We are Vermont. So choose Vermont NMP. So all you're doing on this form is writing your farm name, whatever that is, and then choosing Vermont NMP. After that, we'll click next. And then we'll just fill out some of this information about our farm, where it is. So pretty standard stuff here. So this is the mailing address or your farm address, the location that makes the most sense to describe your farm. Put all this stuff in. And then the county, I'm going to bring this up a couple times when we're going through GoCrop, but choose the county that most of your farm fields are in. So some folks, your farm and all your fields might be in one particular county, and maybe you have a farm that straddles 2 different counties. We ask this here because we use this information to connect to Surgo, which is a soil database that will import information for you. But in order to have the correct soil series codes, it needs to be in the correct county. So choose the county here that most of your fields are in. And when we go to enter information in your field to basically import that information in, you can always change the county there. So don't fret too much if you do have a farm that straddles 2 counties. We'll be able to troubleshoot it as we go through it. But just for now, choose the one that is most representative of the farm field that you have. All right. So has everybody done this yet? Are we ready to move on? Can I have at least one person give me an indication of where folks are at? All right, I see one say yes. I'm going to go on. I guess I should have said this earlier. If at any time you need me to slow down or go over something again, please write it in the chat, or otherwise unmute your mic and let me know. So click next here. And now we have our settings. You absolutely need to have advanced crops clicked here. These other tools are not available right now in GoCrop. As they come online, we'll let you know, and you'll have the opportunity to add them at no cost to you, and we're happy to help walk through how to use them as well. But right now, we're going to use advanced crops. It's so embedded, you can't even unclick it. For now, I'm going to ask you to hold off on the Vermont Discount Program access code. We'll come back to that in a little while. So for now, just settings, you're not going to do anything here, and you're going to click submit. So now up above, right, I've just created my farm. You might see it download a little bit. It's taking us a moment to get there. And so now what I'd like you to do is click your farm that you've just created to open it up. Now, once we've done that, you can see that we have some more menu options on the left-hand side. We've got planning, which where we're going to be spending most of our time in GoCrop for this class. There's a whole other section to enter records. And then there's farm assets, which is one way to look at all your fields, all your equipment, all your manure sources or nutrient sources throughout all your plan years. And there's some other things too that are nice to see in farm assets. And we'll go over what that looks like probably towards the end of class. And also records we'll go over towards the end of class. So for right now, pretty much going to stick in the planning tab. The other thing I want to touch on before we actually get to start your plan, which I know is what you really want, we're still in the account phase, right? We created our GoCrop account, and now we're going to kind of put some details in for our farm. So we're going to click this other button in our green menu, Farm Settings. Open that up, and we see a bunch of information that we just saw, right? And some things that seem to kind of overlap with our account. But we're in farm settings and we've got our details. This is what we just entered, right? Our address, we've got our settings. Again, what we just entered, we've got our program discount code here. Again, we're going to ignore that. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But I think the other few pieces I want to touch on are these last three, and then we'll come back to billing in a moment. But the other thing that you can manage from your farm setting is users. So for example, you are the farmer, this is your email address, this is your role. Maybe you're working with someone from NRCD or Extension, and you want them to have access to your account. Instead of just sharing your username and login information with them, you can invite them as a user. And this is really helpful because if for whatever reason things change, you can always remove that person as a user. And there's also a number of permission settings as well. So it's something to consider. If this is something that you are interested in doing, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help walk you folks through it. Inviting a user is at no additional cost. If you do want to invite a user, which could be, again, your technical assistance provider, or it could be a worker who you may want to add. You may want to give them the ability to add records, but not do anything with your plan. The only thing they need to do in order for you to invite them as a user is to sign up for a GoCrop account, right? And when they sign up for a GoCrop account, that's free, right? You just did it for free. And then when they use GoCrop, it's covered under your license. So to invite them, you just enter the email address that they used to create their GoCrop account to make sure that those match. And then you can choose their role. And again, if you're curious about this, I'm happy to walk folks through it. Just let me know. There's a record years tab. Just in case you had been working with GoCrop, I guess pre-2025, there was this whole other workflow that involved record years. We don't have that anymore, so don't worry about it. But we just have a little blurb here saying, don't worry about it. So you can ignore the record years. And then we have this data and ownership tab that has the exact same information about our privacy and our contact information that are accounted. So now we're going to go to billing. And you depending on what makes the most sense for you, you can choose to have a subscription that renews year after year, or you can have a subscription that you need to re-up every single year. So there's about a 10% savings if you go with the auto renewal. And I think, Susan, you said that there was a program code. Sorry, that's not what I meant to say. The program code is in settings. We're not entering promotion codes right now, or sorry, program codes. We're entering promotion codes. So to do that, you're going to click the one that makes the most sense for you. You're going to click checkout now. And then you can add your promotion code. I think, I don't know if I heard that correctly. I might have to be putting that in. But once you type in the code that Susan gave you, click apply. It should bring it down to 0. You can enter your credit card information and click subscribe. So there's that situation. I'm not going to do that for this account right now because I've got my, I just have different permissions that I can give myself because I'm an admin. But for you right now, sitting in class, please take a couple minutes and do this. Because what's going to end up happening is that, 3-4 weeks from now, when your free subscription ends, GoCrop's going to say, hey, we need all this information, or we need to do this now, when we're not in that mode. Like, you're going to be sitting down in class, ready to do the next step, and you're going to be hung up here entering this information. So just please do this now. This code is for a full year, so you should be all set. So I'm going to just give it a moment. Thank you, Lisa. So it's 226 and P is the code.
Hey, it's me again.
Yep.
Okay, we're trying to get the person who just got their verification one set up. She doesn't have as many tabs along the top as everybody else.
When she first comes in, she won't, because she hasn't started the new plan yet.
Okay.
So when you first create an account, you'll just see account and synced, and you'll have a screen that doesn't have any of this stuff. It'll be blank, and I'll have new farm here.
Okay. Sorry, I was running around during that whole part.
All good. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to move on unless somebody in the next 10 seconds tells me to wait. I literally just did 10 Mississippis, and I tried to do them at like a normal pace and not a super quick pace. So we're going to go on now, right? So you created your new farm. You'll probably only have one farm here. Click that, right? We just went into farm settings. So if you're in farm settings, you'll click planning on the left in the green menu. And now we have another blank page where we're going to start our first plan. And I know this is the moment you've been waiting for. This is why you're in the class, to start your plan. So to do that, again, we're going to click our plus button in the upper right-hand corner. And now we just have a few questions, not even. So we have this plan year that defaults to 2026 because that's our current year. You're going to leave that there. You can put any notes you want here about this plan. You don't have to. This notes section doesn't show up on any reports. It's there just for you. Again, most people don't use this, but we put it in there just in case. And I'm going to spend just a few moments talking about the show advanced. And just because in our new update of GoCrop, we really tried to maximize transparency and flexibility. So if you click show advanced, you'll see a couple different options. One is that you can create a different name for your plan. So GoCrop typically will just say 2026 annual plan. Next year, it'll default to say 2027 annual plan, but you could change this plan name. I would ignore that for now. I just want to let you know that it's there. You can also change the custom plan date on your reports here. Typically, what gets printed on your reports, I know you haven't seen them yet, but you'll get a bunch of reports about your plan that meets all the state requirements. And they have like a header with the plan date on them for each single report. Usually that date is the last time your plan was updated, but you can change that date here. Again, I'd ignore that. I just want to let you know that that's here. Here's another section for your plan where you can indicate what you want to have as a part of it. And right now your only option is Vermont NNP report. You want to keep that checked. Here's another section where we can say include crop removal in nutrient balances. We will actually use this when we're developing your plan. So right now, when you're here, I'm going to ask you to change this from a no to a yes. If you miss this at this point, and we get into the class 3 weeks and we don't see this in your nutrient balance, no big deal. We'll just go back to the same place and we will change it. So you can, you're in the space right now in your advanced settings, say yes, we're going to have crop removal on nutrient balance. We also have this next question, which is include grazing manure in reports. Please default this to no. Even if you're grazing, just leave it at no right now. Vermont doesn't require it, and we don't need to see it when we're looking at your reports. So leave that at no as no. And then we have these other two options, specify your previous year's plan or your previous plan for 2 years. If you're new to Go Crop, you can't choose this because this is your first plan ever. But next year, so just imagine, this year or in the next 6 weeks, you're going to be entering a bunch of data. And there's going to come a point where like, oh, this is monotonous. That's okay. It's a normal feeling. But next year, when you come work with Extension or NRCD or NRCS, you're going to update your plan and you're going to base it off of your previous year's plan, which is this year's plan. And your data entry is going to it's going to tank. You're going to have way less to do next year. So just as you're piecing through creating your nutrient management plan this year, you're doing your future self a favor. Just keep that in mind while you're in the thick of it. So we don't have those options here, but next year you'll see them here.
Hey, Lindsay,
Yes, Susan.
quick question. If a farmer has done it before, should we start from the old plan or from scratch?
I would recommend starting from the old plan. And if you are starting from an old plan and it's quite a bit different, you can update each one of the fields to change them to what they are this year. Thanks, Susan. So if you are somebody who has already had a plan, when you go to start a new plan, there will be a different question that starts from scratch or choose a plan to copy from. Probably want to choose the most recent year to copy your plan from. So we'll click save. And now we have this whole new layout here. We've got our 2026 annual plan. From this page, right, our planning tab, we can be on our dashboard or reports. We'll get to reports at the end of class, but this is where you can access them. And we have a couple of other pieces here. We've got our plan status, which right now is active, right? Because we have a subscription, whether you just entered your discount code or you're still in the free 30 days, that means you're active. There's this locked planned feature that is not enabled currently. And basically what this was, the intent of this was that once you finished your plan, you could lock it so that in the event that you changed your plan later in the season, it wouldn't necessarily, you wouldn't be able to. It would give you kind of like a little bit of a warning in that. And part of the reason why we had created this is because sometimes we found that people, it would be 2020, 26, and folks would be in their 2025 plan year changing it for 2026. So we thought, okay, well, if we finish making a plan in 2025, we can just lock it. And so if someone tries to update their plan, the 2025 plan for 2026, it would give them a little bit of a warning. And then over here on the right, we also have the edit settings. This is just where we were. And if you want to edit this at any time, you just click the edit button, show advanced. Here we've got everything again. But we've got, we can start our plan and you can kind of see faded out here that these are all our plan steps. And as we go through, these little circles will change. They'll go from not started, so empty, to in progress. It'll be partially filled in, to completely done. It'll be green, I think with a check mark maybe. But what I'm going to say now, and I will probably repeat over and over and over again, is that Go Crop checks for completeness. It does not check for accuracy. And by completeness, I mean like something is filled out, right? So like you can enter anything into your narrative, and GoCrop doesn't know what you're saying. So it's just like, yeah, you did that piece. It's done. Whether that's accurate or not, GoCrop doesn't know. So this is just saying, yes, everything's filled out. Doesn't know if it's filled out completely accurately. So now we have, we'll always in GoCrop have an edit plan button up here in the right-hand side. But this is the only time that we can press the start planning button, because once we press this, it's gone. It's gone until next year. So we're going to start right now and we'll press start planning. And now we have on the left this, what I'm starting to call like the diamond steps. And it shows every single step that we will go through in the nutrient management plan. The diamond that is filled in is the step that you are on. It doesn't mean that you're complete or anything like that. It's just, this is the step you're on. And then we tried to kind of indicate which things kind of build off of each other. So for example, you can see there's nutrient sources and there's nutrient analyses, and there's a little connector between the two. So basically this is trying to visually say, you can't enter nutrient analyses until you enter nutrient sources. Kind of makes sense, right? Like how can you enter analysis for something that's not there? Equipment isn't connected to anything because you don't build anything off of it and nothing leads up to it being built. Fields, there's a bunch of different connections because we can't enter risk management or crops or even nutrient balance if we don't have your basic field name entered. But we'll go through each one of these steps sequentially as we go through GoCrop. So right now we're in the getting started step on the left side, and basically it's just telling us a little bit about how to use GoCrop essential navigation, right? So once we actually get into the plan narrative, you can jump among steps by clicking on them. But again, we recommend going through them sequentially. And you can also use your browser's backwards and forwards buttons here, just like you normally can to get to the previous page. And you can always go click this back to dashboard button to get back here to this page, right? You don't need to click planning and then your plan name, right? You don't have to do this. You can just start right from that little button in the bottom left. Now you can see that since we've started our plan, all of our steps are not faded anymore. They're brought into their full glory. And to get to our next step, or any of the steps, we can click on any of them. But again, we're going to start at the beginning. And we know that I can click on it because the row is highlighted. So we're going to start at the narratives and farm info. That was our next step. And right, we had started at getting started. And so if you're still on the step, that's fine. If you want to go to the next step, you can click the plan narrative here, or you can click continue planning in the bottom right, whichever one makes the most sense to you. So I'm going to click on continue planning, and it's going to take us to our plan narrative. I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to give it about 10 seconds for somebody to tell me that I need to wait longer than 10 seconds to get to this page. No one has told me to not keep going. I'm going to keep going. So we're here. We're in our plan narrative. And now we kind of have this subsection checklist of 7 things. Our planner details, our farm, manure, tillage, watershed, land, and livestock information. And just like the checklist that we saw on our dashboard, it will let us know if it's complete or not. So we're going to start at the very top with planner details. So to open that up, you'll just click that row. And we know we can click it because the row is highlighted. And now we're going to fill out this information. So the planner details, you'll notice it starts by asking you, what is the farm name? And I'm just going to back up here for a moment because this is one of our first forms in GoCrop that we're seeing that has this little help text, which is a question mark and a bubble. And so if you want to see any of that help text or the hint, you can just click on it, and I'll give you a little bit more context for what you're filling out. So I'm just clicking on all of mine just so you can see what that looks like. I also think that this can make the form rather busy. So if you don't want to see that, you kind of understand the context enough, you can just press the X button to get rid of them. So on your screen, do what makes the most sense for you. So the planner here is the farmer, the person managing this account, whose email address was just entered. It is the farmer. So you're going to enter in your name as the farmer, or sorry, the farm name. You're going to enter in the farm name. And then you're going to enter in whoever is managing this plan, or the farm manager. So again, it's your farm name, and then whoever is the farmer sitting in front of the computer, the manager who's sitting in front of the computer now, that's the name that you'll put there. And then you'll put in a contact number. Whatever you put in here is what is going to enter on report. So you can just put in your straight numbers, or you can kind of break it up a little bit too. Whatever's easiest, whatever you want to see. And then you'll enter the contact email of the manager, or the farm planner in this case as well. And then we have a personal notes section. You can put whatever you want here, and that can be nothing. This is optional, not something you need to do. And then we have a planning assistance provided by. This is something that we added because sometimes someone will make a plan, and then the person they make the plan with isn't around, and 5 years later they haven't updated their plan at all, and we need, or they have been updating their plan, but we need to update a Russell 2 value or a map. But who they're working with 5 years from now is not who they're working with now. It's really great to know where that information came from, so that we can kind of trace that back and get the info a little bit more easily than we could if we didn't have that information. So your planning assistant is going to be your technical assistance provider, who is helping you with this. So that might be, say, Jason Tankersley is in the room. That could be Kate Wettergreen, Lauren Weston, a variety of other NRCD folks. It could be somebody from Extension. It could be me, it could be Sarah Ziegler, Jeffrey Sanders. There's a bunch of other folks that are helping too. So please put the name of the person who is helping you, the farmer planner, develop and create this plan. And I'm just putting in dummy names for now. And maybe you're working with multiple people. If you are, you can add as many as you'd like, but normally it might be 1 to 3 people. Once you have all of this information, you'll click Save. Now that we've entered that, GoProp says, hey, you put like every piece of information we asked you to fill out, you filled it out. Don't know if it's right, but we've got it there. So there's a little green checkbox there. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see the information we just entered. I'm gonna wait about 5 seconds before moving on. Make sure folks are caught up. And now we're going to keep going. We're going to click on farm to enter in our farm information. So here's your plan narrative. Again, we've got like this little help text button here. You can write as much or almost as little as you'd like. And you can also expand these text boxes if you're like, this is too tiny. Also, as you write, it can expand width as well. And you can also kind of expand it out if that's helpful. But what we're asking for here, right, like we have some help text as well. But what we're really looking for here is, you might say, I manage 400 acres, mostly, whatever your crops are. And then like maybe how much, on average, what your livestock is. And I'm just kind of putting in some stock text here. You might also describe your management practices, maybe and like whether that's how you till, how you apply manure. There's a manure section, so like really high level stuff here. And then any any changes you're looking to make in future years. And again, this is pretty high level. It doesn't need to be nitty gritty, but it could be something like, we plan on, leasing more acres and adding to our herd. I think just as equally valuable is saying what you're not planning on doing. So maybe you're not planning on expanding your land base or adding more to your livestock. You can also say, no, we do not plan on adding more acres or adding to our herd. So again, this can be as little or as much as you would like. And this is something that, like, really, if someone was completely unfamiliar with your farm, if they were to pick this up, giving them an impression of what you're growing, how you're growing it, and what changes you want to make in the future. So then our next question is, here is describe your typical crop rotation. And this could be something like, we have about a quarter of our land in continuous corn, one quarter in permanent hay, maybe it's pasture, whatever you've got, and 1/2 in a, 4-year corn, 6-year hay rotation. So whatever you are growing on your farm, just real briefly, what is it? How is it rotated? Do you have corn that's rotating? Is it rotating between corn and soy? Is it diversified vegetable farm? Those pieces. Whether you want it or not, GoCrop will also let you know if you have a spelling error. So if you want to, you can also clean up your text with GoCrop's help. I'm right-clicking here, and it's telling me this is the proper way to spell continuous. So this last question in our plan narrative is, how do you determine yield goals and estimates? And in this section, what we're really looking for, or by we, when I say we in this context, I mean to meet state regulations, you need to basically say, hey, I'm counting all the loads or bales that are coming off my field, and I know the average weight or load of a bale. Now, maybe you haven't been keeping records. This is a friendly PSA that the Agency of Ag and Required Agricultural Practices requires that yields be kept on a field by field basis. But maybe you don't have those. And so what you could say instead here is that, yields are based off of regional values for the soil types. That would be found on your soil series fact sheet, and your technical assistance provider can help you find those for later. And then you say, and this year we're going to keep records, and next year we'll update our anticipated yields based off of our actual records. So I'm going to type that in here and also give some time for folks to fill in their plan narrative. I guess I should have prefaced this by saying we're going to walk through the farm narrative today, and then we'll pick up on the next sections later. So once you're done, you can click save. And now we can see that next to our planner details, we can see our farm narrative. At any time you want to change your farm narrative, you can click the little edit button here on the right. I am going to pause here to give anybody 10 seconds to tell me that they want me to wait longer than 10 seconds. Hearing no objections, I'll move on to the manure section. And here we have some pretty basic questions about how in general you manage manure on your farm. And we have these 2 drop downs and then 1 text. So when do you apply manure? You look at this drop down, choose the one that makes the most sense for you. Is it spring and summer? Is it fall? Is it all seasons? You'll notice we don't have winter here, and that is because there's a winter spreading ban in Vermont. So that's just not an option. Our next question here is how long before you incorporate applications on average? Now, how you determine average is up to you, right? Like maybe you inject on all your corn ground, and so that's immediate. Maybe you broadcast on your hay, and that's 7 days are not incorporated. So I think how you just what you choose here, you can describe in more detail below. So choose whatever makes the most sense for you in general on your farm. So then we have some help text here about how to describe your manure management systems. I think what's really helpful here is to say, we have a pit that holds, 1 million gallons. We inject on corn lands and broadcast on hay lands. So whatever you're doing, describe that here. This is just some stock text that I'm putting in here to fill out our plan with you. If you compost it, if you export or import any manure. So maybe you have a pit that holds 1 million gallons, but we export 250,000 gallons. If you do export, this is just a friendly reminder that you need an import-export agreement with whomever is taking your manure. And if you need a copy of one of those, please reach out to your technical assistance provider or someone from Extension. So you could say, we inject on corn land before seeding in the spring and before cover crop planting in the fall, and we broadcast on hay land after each setting. So, describe what your nutrient sources are. You might have a pit, you might have several pits, you might have a stack, you might have a pit and a stack. What are they? How much do they hold? Where are they going and when are they going there and how? That's what we're looking for in describing your manure management system. When you feel like you're done with that, you can click save. And now we can see that, we got our check mark if that's done, and we have our manure narrative here. And we can always click this little pencil button if we want to edit it. So again, I'm just going to pause here for 10 seconds, and if anybody needs me to wait, let me know. So we'll move on to tillage. And tillage, a lot like the manure form, we just filled out. So again, we're going to choose our primary tillage method, whatever, again, makes the most sense to you. If you're no-till through and through, you can click no-till, you can click that doesn't apply, but whatever makes the most sense for you, you're going to choose that here. And then we're going to describe the tillage, right? So what equipment are you using, on what kind of ground, and when are you using it? So, if, for example, you might be someone who primarily no-till continuous corn, but will disc or plow in hay when rotating into corn. Oops. Apparently, I don't know how to spell primarily. Try one more time. So I'm going to click save here. And now it shows up as the fourth box on the right-hand side, and we got a little checkbox here. I'm going to wait about, again, 10 seconds to see if anybody wants to wait or has any questions. Okay, we're going to move on to watershed. And we have some help text here. You're going to put in the watershed name that hopefully on your maps. If you don't know what it is, hopefully your technical assistance provider can help you. I'm going to throw in one that's around here. And then you're going to put your hydrological unit code. If you don't know what this is, and you need a moment to work with your technical assistance provider to find it, or it's going to take a moment, that's okay. You can leave it blank. But maybe you do know if it's impaired or not, and you can say why it's impaired. And it could be agricultural runoff, stream bank erosion, temperature. Please work with your technical assistance provider, NRCD extension, to figure out what hydrological unit code is for your watershed, if it's impaired or not, and then why. And then save it. So now we have my watershed is below my other 4 boxes, and I didn't put in the hydrological unit code because I wasn't sure. And so now it just says, oh, we're in progress. That's all. That's okay. So I'm going to wait about 10 seconds. But again, if you don't have this information readily available at this moment, maybe that's something to let your technical assistance provider know, and hopefully they can have that ready for you next time. So I'm going to wait about, again, 10 seconds to see if anybody needs me to wait longer or has a question. Okay, I'm going to move on to land. And so we have like these 2 broad categories of land, that's owned and leased. And then we have 3 subcategories below that: tillable, permanent hay, and permanent pasture. And then we total them at the top. I think what's important here to mention is that GoCrop doesn't total this for you. Would be great if it did, but it doesn't. And we don't want to double count, right? So like your permanent hayland really is like that hayland that has been hayland and will forever be hayland. Like that's just what it is. And then your permanent pasture, same thing, but pasture. And then your tillable is any of your like continuous annual cropland or anything that you do rotate, from perennial to annual. So from hay to corn, from hay to soy, whatever it is. And I think it's also important to note that like the acres that you put in here are only the acres in your nutrient management plan. So if you own and operate 400 acres, that's awesome. But maybe only 200 of them are in your nutrient management plan. So only put those 200. Like maybe those other ones are like too far. You never put fertilizer on them or manure, so they're not in your plan. So again, only put the acres here for your owned and leased in your land section here, and then total them. I wouldn't also, another caveat here is like throw your best guesses in for these at the moment, because the other piece of this too is that for each one of your fields in a later step, we'll be entering the acreage for each one of your fields. And then from there, that report will generate a total for owned and a total for leased. And so no matter what you put in owned and leased now, later we will most likely update those total numbers with the ones that are generated on your report. And then we'll make sure that these other 3 categories total up to that new total, that total that's generated in your report. So best.
Hey, Lindsay,
Yeah.
I see a question in chat. Is
Thank
the if the farm is in multiple watersheds? Question mark.
I believe that the watershed that it should be entered there is where the farm is based. like where your address is for that farm.
Hey, that's one of ours, and the water, there's two watersheds and it splits the home farm, like right down the middle. Just pick one.
Which watershed has the most fields in it, or greatest acreage, I should say?
So they have,
Okay.
there's one that says
Do that.
headquarters. So would that be
Thanks.
like,
So I think one of the things too here, right, is like here I'm like, oh, there's only 200 acres in my nutrient management plan. So I'm going to save my land. And then I might come back up here to my farm and say, oh, you know what? I manage 400 acres, but 200 are in my NMP, right? Like, just make that really clear. So if someone picks that up and they're like, well, you said you managed 400, but only 200 are in your nutrient management plan, then they can there's a sentence here that kind of describes that. So I just finished the land that's now showing up here on the right. And I'm just gonna give it another 10 seconds for if folks need me to wait or if there are any other questions. Okay, I'm going to move on to livestock. So this is the last section of our narrative. And you're going to choose your livestock group. So if you are a farm and you have no livestock, all you're going to do is you're going to click this button, click save, and just chill out for a minute while everybody else is entering their livestock numbers. But if you do have livestock, you're going to choose your animal type for each one of your groups, right? So we have this drop down menu here, and you might have more than one animal type, and so you can add another and keep on going. I would say add as many animal groups as makes the most sense for you, right? So we have a bunch of different categories, right? We've got just general dairy, we've got, you know, lactating cow, dry cow, all of these different stages of heifers, bred heifers, dairy calf, dairy or beef calf, beef cow. I'm not going to read all of these, but you know, look at all of them and pick the ones that make the most sense to you. And if we don't have what you're looking for, there is another. You can choose the other. That's okay. So just going to throw in some numbers here for a few livestock groups just to give folks an idea of that. So we have maybe 60 lactating cows, and then it says present number, but this really should be average, right? Because your herd can fluctuate over you know, the 12 months that this plan will be applicable to. So what's your average? And then what's your maximum, right? Like how much could you really expand? Like, do you really have room on your farm for? And then what's the average weight of that animal group? And then how much milk is produced per head per day? If the animals are always confined or not. And then, you know, once you're done with that group, if you only have one, you'll click save, or you might add a few others. I'll do my dry cows next. You know, even if you just because it says dairy, it'll still ask you if there's an average milk production per day. Put in 0. If you do choose no for always confined, grazing type will stay visible, and you'll choose your grazing type, whether that's continuous or management intensive. Again, choose the one that makes the most sense for you in your management operation. And then, you know, how many cows do you have per acre that are in that group? Again, continue to add as many livestock groups as makes the most sense, enter in that information, and then click save. This is now making, like, this is sometimes when creating a nutrient management plan, you might be in one spot and it'll like make you think of something else in a previous spot. So for example, maybe after I enter my livestock, I'm like, oh, a better way to describe my manure is that all my, lactating herd manure goes into a pit, but I keep a stack for my heifers. And so to kind of describe not only, if you have multiple nutrient sources, which livestock groups are contributing to those manure sources. All right, so now I can see my entire checklist is all filled out. And maybe I'm at this point where I'm like, I don't want to see my checklist. We have this little hide button up here. So if we hide my checklist, then I just see each of the forms I filled out, right? And we have a pencil button on each one of them, so we can go into any of them at any time and make any changes. We can also bring back that checklist because it can be kind of satisfying to see all those little check marks. And then I just want to show you when we go back to the dashboard, right? Now my narratives and farm info is partially filled in, it's partially complete because I don't have my hydrological unit code in, right? So I click here, I quickly know which isn't completed. But other than that, go back to our dashboard, we are completed, hopefully, our narratives and farm info. And we might find that as we go through the rest of the steps, there might be something we need to update in our farm narrative, and that's okay. It's really easy to get to. I think that was the task for today. Are there any questions on the farm narrative pieces or accessing co-crop? Or is anybody like super excited about next week's class and want to share it? Heather just jumped on because she is really excited about next week's class.
Nope, I'm just thought you were wrapping up, so I think yeah, if people have some time now to work in class, and there's a couple of questions we'll answer, but yeah, now's the time to work on your homework for next week.
There is
And
a question in the chat.
Yep, I see that.
Okay.
And I think Susan is going to create breakout rooms, and that way, if anybody needs assistance, you can do that. Could we be in a breakout room with Ed Rainville? You saw that, Susan.
Yep, the breakout rooms are created. You guys should be able to just jump in. You join the room that you choose. Just pick one. Like since St. Albans asked, St. Albans is going to take room 1. So Ed Rainville, they want you to go to room 1. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so we'll let people get to work and we'll stay on if there are any questions. And Taylor, I see you're asking about which t-value to use for the complex soils. Usually you would defer to the most limiting one. So that would be my suggestion. All right.